Good everybody, we'll make a start with the hui and I'll ask Nick to open out.
Morena te whare, a Karakia poto tēnei I tīmata tātou nei hoi, tēnei taro rangi nui atu ake nei, tēnei taro papatūna ku takoto nei, tēnei taro rangi rao ka pape takoto nei. Kara rau te tapu ai o tāne ki raro tēnei tapu nai mai hea, ka rangati te au e piri, ka rangati ko tāne e piri e tata mō kia tīna, tēnā, hoi e tāne.
Okay, so any apologies? Kia ora.
Morena.
Did have Penny down, and that's us. We haven't heard from anyone. Okay. Just Penny.
Ready to move?
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Nick. Declarations of interest. I get there's none. Confirmation of our minutes. Anybody willing to move the minutes?
I'll move the minutes. Yeah, happy to move.
Larry. Colin? We don't do that as surprising, do we? Okay. We acknowledge and tributes. Right, we'll just go to our business then. First report, DrainWise. I think all the reports is read, but the managers want to speak to anything. Welcome to.
We take it as read, we can just respond to any questions.
Larry.
Yeah, maybe a question, but a statement. Really nice to hear, or to see that we haven't have any overflows, because you know, I remember Thursday week we had flooding, we had a lot of water, and normally the manhole along the Reddy Street intersection, when that overflows, that's an indication that we've got you know, the scours will be open. That overflowed, and the scours weren't open. So you know, obviously the DrainWise program is working really well, and what's happened, you know, those for the one station as well is only make it clear. So you know, that's the only way we can monitor how successful DrainWise has been. And you know, that was a heavy downpour. That was, you know, there was flooding, surface flooding everywhere. And under any other normal circumstances, the scours would have been open. We would have warnings on our beaches again. Beaches closed for 5 days, but you know, so congratulations. You know, that's proof that the DrainWise program has been really successful and can only get better and better as it's laid out. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Thank you. Timing, however, might we won't. We've got a couple of days of soon ahead of us, so we hope we can manage that as well.
What's that, sorry?
With the weather coming in, we've got a couple of days ahead of us as well.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Trying to get ahead of that.
Right.
Yeah, ditto to what Larry's saying, and on page 13.9, looking at the number of properties covered since 22 to April, and then the amount covered this last week, that's the last 2 months, the run rate has just increased incredibly. But, you know, I don't know what's happening, but something good's happening there, where it's gone from 254 per month historically to 410 per month. That is properties inspected. And then downpipes into gullies has gone from, which one's it? It's gone from 32 per month, sorry, 4.5 per month to 8.5 per month. The only one that's changed in the opposite direction, which is the gully traps repair. Is that an indication of what?
The gully traps are in they'll only repair what needs to be repaired. Otherwise, they move through it. So we are finding more downpipes, which is a concern. But these are properties we haven't been to, so positive we find them, and progressively working through getting those out, working with the. And so all this works towards improving the network performance during event.
Especially those downpipes, because they're the ones that are.
Well, it's a direct flow, so yeah, it's direct inflow that seems to be our biggest issue that we're working through.
And is this an indication of the target town you're operating in, younger houses, or is there any other thing that's altering these figures significantly?
A lot of figures that rest in there as we compute KIT, so this is KIT, which is not old, but kind of mid sort of age. But the downpipes, we get a reasonable average just about in most areas. So there's no split. Obviously, if it's a newer build, there shouldn't be any issue at all. But yeah, maybe a reflection that we're working through some of the
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just an acknowledgement for the report, and also to the work that the staff have put into all this mahi. It does seem to reflect a positive turnaround for our community. And we were just commenting earlier that compared to what we see on the media from other regions, with pipes exploding, water falling all over the street and making good TV, we're appreciative that we aren't having that kind of thing. And it does seem to be tracking in the right direction, at least, in comparison particularly to what other regions are going through. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Another question on page 15. How big is the wish list here? This is obviously
Wish list is massive, but the realistic list, I think we concentrate on what's achievable within constraints of funding generally, and what is most highest prioritised. So the team prioritise very carefully, and we have to leave some room for flexibility for unforeseen events. So, last year we had, this year Stout Street went out, so that prioritised some budget. So that wasn't wastewater though, that was water. But, yeah.
And then a question around that corner intersection of around 440 Gladstone Road, which is the budget fishing. There's one shop I do know there, where they've had historical flooding.
Stormwater, right?
Yeah. Has anything ever been done there?
Positive news on that one. That's an area we're currently working on in regards to investigation and design, in regards to how we resolve that under the stormwater. We've got the stormwater renewals, but we've also got another budget under stormwater that we can undertake that work, which is stormwater resilience. So that's a project we're looking at because, it's highlighted as a issue. So that's a project we're able to talk to as it progresses.
Is there any timescale on that at this stage?
It'll come through as we work through the getting closer on their investigations, kind of near the stage of that coming into design, and then what are we looking at from a timeline and budget-wise for a project to resolve. So I understand it's not a real simple one to resolve because it's a network that flows from that point and all the way down. So a bit of work to do, but we'll be able to advise on what that timeline looks like. The factors around it.
Another question actually, about the renewals program. It's out for tender with construction to start spring 25. How many people, how many businesses or companies are involved who would put in the tender? I mean, you've got companies that are still at the moment, I guess, obviously. And so, is it put out for tender every season or?
So this year, well, I'm not sure, but because the tender's just closed, so I'll be informed of how many tendered. Last time I think we had 4 tender for that. This time we've gone for both the 25-26 and the 26-27 program, because there's 3 million in each. to just ensure continuity through that program and best value. So the incumbent, or the one that has done it for the last few years, has won up to date and successfully done it. But as they work through the tender evaluation process, they will determine who the successor is for the next 2 years.
So it's obviously out of town tenderers, because of people that haven't been worked in this region before that are, new people coming into the business of
We'll only be talking to parties with a lot of experience in private renewables. What we found in our tender processes, and this is across all infrastructure disciplines, is that there's a strong correlation with financial competitiveness than with your local capacity and capability, because of the entry hurdles to housing and placing people generally take you out of the picture in a lot of sectors. We've got some specialist techniques we use here, but generally there's usually a pretty decent local component in it. Otherwise, it's just not competitive. And bundling these together for a couple of years is a really good innovation that our asset planning guys, Aaron and that, came up with, where it's just so much more attractive. We actually benefit from that as well by getting better prices over longer term. But what the tenders are showing is across anything from bridge building to culvert replacements to clips of dropouts to roading and waters, is that a heavy local component, provided they are competitive, is an important component in winning that work.
Yeah, totally.
Just critically, that the ones we're talking about being for the wastewater one, which is a lining program as a specialist undertaking. So normally it's a company that's working up and down the country or multiple countries, because it's such a specialist approach. But the stormwater renewals, definitely follow that pathway.
Great.
Thank you, Chair. Just additional question. In terms of the Graham Road Delta Stormwater on page 17, number 34, just the potential disruption to the school. Wondering if there's been a consideration to undertake those works during the holidays for Christmas. I'm sure the school would appreciate that.
The team are doing a fantastic job there. So they've already been talking with the school and incorporated into that whole approach for that is to where each part of that work is undertaken to get it done, because it's been on our work program for a long time. But there's a critical consideration is how we best work with the school, and they're very happy and responsible for the way the team have been interacting. So it's a positive sign for everything that's gone through.
Perfect. Thank you. Wanda.
Kia ora tātou. I have a question. It's relating to the tenders that you were just discussing before in terms of price competitiveness and also the heavy local contractors. I suppose my question is that generally across all that you're seeing being applied in tenders and infrastructure, what is the percentage that price competitiveness and heavy local contractors can actually be successful to win tender?
Percentage.
Yeah, because I'm interested in that, because we definitely want that and that's been part of council, certainly drivers that we can give it, but this is the first time I've had the opportunity to ask the question of what gets let, what actually are we being able to successfully do that makes the local workforce component as well as price competitive.
For competitive, I'll speak outside of the water specialty at the moment. So lining is not something that a local contractor can do, but in the roading space, up until we've got to bridges, pretty much everything has gone to local contractors, absolutely everything. that's, there is a portion of our tendering process which leans in favour of local, but also it's bearing out the costs associated with the work. So we're winning on both sides. A risk, if I could caution the industry a bit, is the fund's going to come to an end.
Yes.
And businesses need to be able to grow, but they need to be able to contract as well. And we're uncertain whether that will happen and survive, because we're dropping off a cliff in terms of recovery works. The economic pain of the construction industry has not been one that Te Tairawhiti has felt because of recovery work. You learn the strength of business on how they adjust to size. We've got a number of local businesses which have expanded, very worried about the ability to get back to right sizing. Essentially, can you operate at 1/5 of what you are now?
Yes, kia ora.
And not turn it into a discussion with council and other entities on why we're not putting food on tables. It's not our job. So that's a caution that we're trying to share with local contractors now. Time has been good. With some, on that subject, the rest of the country should be starting to improve in infrastructure at some spending at some point too. So while when we drop, the rest of the country's coming up. If there's a mechanism for local contractors to win work out of region, there might be a way to augment some of their challenges. But we're not going to be able to provide some of the expectations that are being banded around out there. And the earlier that message comes through, the better, because they'll make better decisions earlier.
Yes, thank you.
On that discussion. And, you know, there's a danger that some firms will not exist because of the difficulty you have in managing reduction.
Thank you very much for your response. It's very much what's been able to be seen already. And there are some local contractors who've been able to secure work outside of the region. So I appreciate that and the risk.
Okay, just following up on Councillor Tibble's question. Appreciate the council having and engaging with our contractors around it and raising those flags early so that they can prepare, because that industry does affect a huge number of families in our community. And so I'm most appreciative of that there's been a clear look into the going forward for council and therefore for them. And like ourselves, we do like to have a very strong local contracting input, and so them going outside the district probably will be confronted on the other side of that equation and those others, so we appreciate the difficulty that they face. I'm also very concerned that as we're on a cliff dive, that we're only partway through winter, and what's happening outside there, and if budgets are going to get tighter, how our district is able to cope with that reduction, and whether I'm pretty sure there is, but I'm hoping that there is discussions ourselves about with the reduced budgets that we are able to keep our district viable going forward, particularly to the end of this winter.
We've had a good start to this winter. If we talk about infrastructure in general, weather up until now, we feel we'll be able to get through this winter okay with, I think an outperformer really is the wastewater at the moment. It's not, there's no gaping wounds that we need to patch at the moment. Something would with respect to the local contractors, it's a totally different sort of contractor that we need in BAU time. It's 70% maintenance operations rather than the total opposite, rather than 80% capital works. It cares about getting little things right rather than moving massive bunch of concrete and steel. And that is a really different feel from what we've got. Not only is our contracting market reducing, but also Trek and other big players are as well at the same time. And what that means is it could be an opportunity because the rest of the company, and Trek and our work, there's a lot of plant and equipment which might be over capacity, but the rest of the country might be coming up. So there's opportunities there to transfer that become something lean. So how I like to explain it is a bodybuilder versus a marathon runner. We're moving towards a marathon runner, and we've been bodybuilding, and it's a totally different diet, it's a totally different mindset, and we're still 12 months away from it. Our biggest spend year is coming. Yeah. So whilst the work for us is starting to horizon in the recovery space, it's because we're letting out the very large projects, very large complex projects. There's an opportunity there too, that in responding to Councillor Tibble as well, where some of the more complex projects bring in expertise as specialists. That's a really important component too for local contractors, because if you want to win work out of region, you're not doing it on your own steam, you're doing it as partners. How do you partner? You become a good partner, and you provide good quality people, good quality decisions, and good quality plant and equipment, and that. So I'm pretty neutral on. I think there's a real positive with experts coming here. People we're bringing in here are really good at their task. We are fortunate to be getting those that we cannot provide those abilities, those experience locally. But our contractors get exposure to those more complex engagements and working in consortia and working amongst others. I think that's a real opportunity for them, because you can't win work without a business development in some place. If that's coming from a third party, does it for you, you're on the end of the phone. That's what. So I don't think externals are a negative. I think the opposite, personally, for those purposes. For those, yeah.
I was got a general question, might be to you, Leo. These smart monitors on the manholes. Can you explain that a little bit to me and how that's supposed to benefit?
It's a bit of an exciting part of our this year ahead. The smart manholes, or smart sensors that go in the manholes, depends on which ones they are, but they detect basically levels in the manhole, so we're able to judge what's happening within our network. Because what we're looking at now is we're a long way through the property inspections and hopefully getting most of the downpipes out. We've now got moving down into, well, what's happening in our network, because we've still got inflow coming in. So where's it coming from? So these sensors, which we're working through a process over the next handful of weeks, where we're going to put them, we are going to gather information as to where's that flow coming from. So in a smart manhole, in a manhole, putting sensors all around going, oh, it's coming from this area, in regards to that surcharging or that level in that manhole is climbing faster than this side over here. So there's an issue in this area. So it's going to help us direct our efforts into finding things like cross-sections, where maybe historically all pipes were treated as one and stormwater went into wastewater and it's underground, so we've not been able to detect it. Discovering those and other issues that may arise where maybe people have been creative in directing their stormwater issues in a more creative way into the network, whatever it may be. It's going to give us insight into ensuring that we're effective in where we direct our funds for the best effect.
So smart metering, manhole use like this allows you to also build rich data sets. So you've got the information you can keep historically of how your network performs, and you can use the information over time to ask machines basically to tell you what's changed and how it should anticipate something. So you'll get a different hydraulic reaction to a known event. If there's a blockage, it can recognise that and you can act quicker. And those data sets, once they're recorded, can just sit on in your library essentially, and you control that for consistency. Well, a machine controls it and sees what's changed. So when you employ these around a network over time, you can get early warning of events you would not know otherwise. It's happening underground. Who knows what water heights are in a particular? But some will say, oh, well, there's a blockage. If you got an extra few hours warning of that, that could be helpful. Additionally, we want to move to a more informed network with time. We can only spend so much money in capital works. The amount of money we invest here represents a pretty modest piece of capital works. But what we try to do is operate our system. We're trying to develop more intelligence to operate the existing system rather than trying to engineer our way out of everything. And that's consistent with what much of the country's doing. And this is a dip into that. These monitors will only last a few years. They'll have a design life. They'll start to deteriorate. They're in pretty caustic environments, but the idea of it is just to build greater knowledge in our network. Eventually, we'll have we want to build more intelligence into our network over time. This is an initial foray into that. So we're relying on decisions on individuals at the moment who know our network very well and do a great job at selecting what pump station, when to drain things early and when not. Eventually, we'd like to be guided by intelligence to do that, rather than relying on individuals who, like everyone else, needs leave and get ill or move to another company or city, so.
No one gets leave when it's raining.
No, they're at their best when it's raining.
Just adding on to that, because we've got half a dozen wells that we've drilled for groundwater monitoring for intrusion, so they will give valuable information as well about the groundwater, how that reacts to different amounts of flooding and tides, stuff I guess as well. So
that's going hand in hand with this piece of work of installing these manholes, where there is an analysis piece of work and a desktop dashboard that's been created out of it, and the water table levels want to be brought into that as well. Yeah. They're more so informing what the infiltration levels are from flat pipes and one or two. And in general, we know what that is given the years we've just been through, which is why we direct most of our issues towards the inflow. So it's more of a direct source that's causing problems.
Hines are likely to have a short video. We'll see if we can share it with the committee.
Yeah.
So we'll have a look if there's any material that they have that's just a YouTube video or something of showing what their tech does. It'd be useful for them.
And it's constantly developing this world too. So the sensors we put in even a year or 2 years ago, the technology is constantly changing and evolving, and they swap out pieces and all sorts now, and they can do more, and it's measurement management basically.
Yeah.
So getting the data to be able to manage both our capital works programs, but also our operational activity going forward.
Nick. Thank you, Chair. Just another point. I was hesitant to raise this because I'm not sure about the kind of reaction I might receive from it. But I'm picking up on the smart manhole situation, and also on the Enviro Schools team. I'm working in terms of education through our community. I commend all of that. But my inquiry is around the use of gender-specific terms for our infrastructure. And the use of the term manhole tends to suggest a tradition of gender bias that gets ingrained in our community. And hence my hesitancy to raise that, but I feel bold enough now to do that, and whether or not there are other terms that we could, particularly through our Enviro Smart, our Enviro Schools program, our Smart Detector progressions, that we can't, as an organisation, as council, be more aware of the gender issues in our community. I'm actually waiting for a response.
I'm trying to get one for you.
I'm trying to think of a name. And nothing comes to mind.
I'm shamelessly going to AI here.
Get an analogy for you.
Probably the first region in the country to change the name. Oh,
Unlikely to
We're
be.
the first light, love. We can do everything.
for sure.
Because that AI fits into the smart
Maintenance
smart
hole,
holes.
but it doesn't have quite the ring.
I'm sure you'll come up with some genius.
That was curiously not of me, of perplexity, apologies. Maintenance hole, gender neutral, yeah. Or utility hole or access hole.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Will it really benefit mankind to change that?
Might do.
It might benefit humankind.
Yeah. Just one more question on the data capture there, Leo. So, whilst the focus is on immediate response to what's going through the pipes, is there any thought about how we can do data comparisons to the inflow into the treatment plant?
Yep.
Historically, yeah, that'll be all part of the process.
Yeah.
We do know from a wastewater treatment plant what's going in there. So, I mean, the investment that was made by council with initially stage 1 and stage 2 is an information-rich statement for flows coming into there from the treatment. And going forward into the future, the link between network and plant and how that management is something we've kind of focused on as well. That direct synergy in regards to, because in times of surcharge, the wastewater treatment plant generally becomes the limiting, the outfall pipe becomes the limiting factor in regards to when the overflow is needed. Because when it's had its capacity, it can't go anywhere. So then you've got to relieve the pressure. But all that goes hand in hand with the network program we're doing around DrainWise of drain our stormwater system, which we bring the whole network into balance, then we just need to try to reduce stormwater.
A simple example might be if you had storage capability in part of your wastewater catchment, at say a pump station where you normally need some storage as well, that had capacity, and you realise that your treatment plant was near or at capacity, you had an automatic system that plays a tune for you to hold the pumps back until but you're always trading off something. So it might also talk to the rain radar. None of those pieces are all stitched together now, but other areas of the country are doing that, like Auckland's Watercare, where I worked, is doing that level of intelligence now. We sort of want to piggyback on some of that knowledge in time, and we want to set up the ability to for that intelligence to become a more integrated part. There's tools that we're looking at which simply manage the data for you, but they need to learn first. So you stitch them on, collect your data for a few years, and help you manage your work. So this is very early stages. We'd ideally, I'd prefer to be the early stages, but what you're mentioning is something that we anticipate to be part of a managed network in the future. But we're taking steps in the direction now.
I guess I'll sort of have some more questions when we get to AED, because that's all I'm needing to. Any further questions? Can someone move the report? Thank you, well done, Nick. Okay.
We'll take the report as read and we can answer questions.
A couple of points, and it goes through all our papers this morning, but the reference to the Kiwa group and the Tangata Whenua reference group, and also on occasion through the papers, an acknowledgement of the Tāmanuhiri Tutu Poroporo Trust, Rona Whakate Iwi Trust, Te Runanga o Ngāti Parau, ngā rohe moana o ngā hapu o Ngāti Parau Act, and also Tautanga Maha ki whānau Kai e ngā ari ki Kai Pūtai. This is on page 26. I saw on the previous report there was a scheduled meeting for the Kiwa group on the 24th of July, just gone. Is it possible to furnish this committee with minutes from those meetings so that we're aware of the discussion and how those discussions might impact on our discussions here? I know that we have iwi representation on our committee, but it requires them to do further work outside the committee to attend these things or to inquire back to their individual groups on play. So just an inquiry on whether it's possible. If not, then it isn't.
But the intent, we didn't quite get it done for this one, was to bring Kiwa group report to this group, which will include the Tangata Whenua reference group, as well as what we're going on. Which is why the first step was the AUD report, which directly relates to that group as well. And then, as I look back, there had historically been a Kiwa group chairman report that would come through and could contain those actions from the group meeting, because we are meeting a lot as a group, which is great. I think it's meeting number 4 or 5 this year for that group. So it's really taking shape and coming together, and then moving into working within this space as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Page 30, these are on our chart, 1.1, a reference to chemicals that are used to clean. The pumps I mentioned, those chemicals are rather robust in nature in order to do their cleaning. I'm just inquiring as to their breakdown once they've entered the system and their progression through that, if any.
So some fantastic news there, because that's the process that we've been working through with the tertiary filter supply that did specify some very robust chemicals that actually did impact our
Water quality.
yeah, well, our bio-trickling filter, because we need it. There's a fine balance in there to keep everything happy. So the work this is what we were working with them as well, but the work the team did, so led by Tracy Penton, the manager, is we went to softer chemistry, citric acid, which we've shown them now. It did just as an effective a job cleaning the filters. They've accepted that now, and it has no issue within the BTF because it's low levels and it's natural with citric acid, so
Yes.
it breaks down. So what I have to say, that's the positive thing in the way the team work is going, both from a handling perspective, but also an impact perspective on the plant and our receiving waters. Is we've gone down a track of natural chemicals.
Alongside that, Mr. Chair, we appreciate that response back, and citric acid based chemistry has been used by our tipuna in mahi toi, particularly mahi rāranga, for the dyeing of moka fibres and things like that, and weaving, and has a very strong traditional use. So I'm most appreciative of that note, because it does also, if any is getting into the environment, helps enhance the cultural connection that we have as a community back into those areas. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's good to see that you're working so closely with Veolia, and some of the outcomes are new to them as well, obviously. So you're kind of showing them a new way that they can use down the track for when they're trying to sell their product, I guess, to other councils. So it's like groundbreaking, and it's really interesting to read actually how the different ways that you're trying to achieve getting these tertiary filters operational 100%. Yeah. So congratulations. It's really good. But when the tertiary filters haven't yet been signed off, is there a light at the end of the tunnel? Where we're going with this? I mean, because that's the ultimate goal, and it's taken a lot longer than one would have hoped. But that's just the way the process is.
I think the time taken has in reality been the time that's been required. Firstly, to optimise the plant to ensure effective trialling of the filters, but also the journey we are walking with Veolia has been a shared one. We approach it from that perspective as well. And there are positives, big positives in there of them acknowledging the challenges we're having and sending through new parts for trials. And I've got to walk that path and that journey with them. So there is light. How long the tunnel is, we're trying to keep it as short as possible, but I think over the next first half of this year, we'll be very clear on, we hope to have completed the trials well within that time, hopefully, and then have this is actually what needs to happen in regards to what we have shown in regards to the trials monitors. The filters can work, it's just agreeing on what needs to be changed within the filters themselves to enable that. And that's just a little bit of a journey as well.
And with the budget.
That's the.
Thank you for the report, and good to see that we are coming under all parameters, which is
Yes.
great. On page 28, we're talking about the blocked nozzles and things. I'm trying to picture how this thing works. Is there promotional video on this?
I'll find it, and if not, we'll make one and show you. There's a lot of challenges there. It has lots of parts to the whole equation, I suppose, and how they all link together to deliver the required outcome. But definitely.
No further questions? So, can I move the report? Hello, Nick. Thank you. AUD.
If we take the report, we can answer questions.
No, again, exciting reading through this and to see that we're working with Alpine Trust, and it's I've been on this committee for a long time, and we've been talking about AUD for a long time, and there's there's looking like some good benefits going to come out of it at the end of it. The Moana Trust involvement. It's always going to be hard to sell recycled water to any industry, I guess, but there must be industries that are using water that require the quality that you would need for drinking. So yeah, I think we've always got to acknowledge the fact that there's always going to be a certain component going out to the ocean outfall, because it's going to be needed for emergencies anyway. But the more that we can mitigate the amount of water going out there, the better over time. So the work with Moana, Aupuni Moana Trust is critical, because that's a huge volume of water that could be used for polishing wetland and for recreational purposes as well. You know, so yeah, the imagination runs wild when you can think what's possible down there, and being so close to our wastewater treatment plant as well is such a benefit. But you know, for it to be used for irrigation, I mean, we've already done a study of our 8 kilometre radius and realised that a lot of those crops aren't even irrigated at all. So we've been on a big journey. But yeah, no, it'd be certainly nice to see as much of that water being utilised and repurposed.
Couple of minutes, Your Chair. Mr. Chair, most grateful that Council is contributing to the AUD development. I'm wondering if there's any update as to where that might be, or how that investigation is. I know it's not our project as such, but what stage that might be at, and whether or not there's further we can do from the council side to support that going forward.
That part is pending from Aupuni Moana Trust. They've done the initial work, and they're going to be reporting back to their trust members in the next few days, dare I say. From that, we'll get information back and be able to report back at this level in regards to what could be done, what considerations there are. It's in the very early phases of maybe a long journey, but certainly there looks like there is further stuff council can do to support that process as they move into maybe a heavier phase of technical options around what they can and can't do, and all the studies involved in that. So we'll definitely be reporting that back in the next meeting, and also discussing it at the Kiwi group, taking feeling reference group level as well. So we're bringing in hopefully a collective view.
Thank you for that. Just and some clarity, if you might, on page 23, the use of the term polishing wetland. I'm not too sure what polishing is a reference to.
Polishing is normally applied to the last portion of a treatment process in water. So often you're calling polishing filters in the plant. It's before it reaches the environment, and it's sort of meant to be descriptive of actual last time you got your metal product and you give it a polish before it goes out to the market. This is a little bit like that. So it's the last point. Quite easy to visualise what a wetland might look like, and as well with flora, fauna, and everything else attached to that. You know, I think that's an interesting feature, but that's simply what polishing means. It's the last.
Appreciate that, because I think it's important in terms of community connectiveness, that terms like that, you know, one can imagine what it might be, but that kind of speak, I think, is important to grab the curiosity of our community. That as a community we're polishing, you know, as a community we're making good of an expectation that we all hold. So I appreciate that. I do have another one while we're on the roll. I'm skipping through to 36, page 36 there on the mortuary mound. I was wondering whether or not with Iwi there's been a consideration for, and this is completely biased artist hat on, some kind of tohu that might represent the kaupapa that's been spoken about in the document, in our report, particularly around hene tātari, who I'm not sure is a tipuna thing, or the fact that does ahu do have cultural context as well? And then layered on top of that is the whakaaro or the tikanga around waka, and whether or not that has, or whether or not there's been a thought by those involved to have some kind of a tohu, some artistic representation to tie that all together as those that gather around that spot might be able to contemplate towards, rather than just a mountain. So that's what happens when you have artists on your committee.
We need more.
Thank you, Chair. The word polishing leapt out at me when I read this, and it sounds great. We've cleaned it, and nature's going to polish it right up. So, and the concept of a wetland, and and we've been taking our wetlands away with drainage and stuff, and here we're going to be able to create a wetland, which is an awesome concept. Two aspects spin from that. One is this wetland's going to take up land, and I presume this is going to be part of the ongoing negotiations, that the council will be putting a long-term lease on that land. Is that the sort of way we're going to head with that, do you think?
I think that's going to come out over time with the trust as they form, how they wish to approach it, and then council working in Wastewater Management committee working in tandem with that as to what those options are and exploring those early days.
Yep. And then the other thing that suddenly leapt out at me, or it hasn't just leapt out, but it concerns me, is that wetlands encourage birds. And we've got this wetland potentially going to be created right at the end of our runway. And are we going to have to pipe this a long way away from the runway to create a wetland?
That will be a part of the work that they undertake. There was some historical work around it, but in regards to that impact of birds and safety, so that'll be a key part of that next phase that they go through as well.
Thank you.
I've got one other question. Like the water quality that we've got coming out of the wastewater treatment plant at the moment is pretty good, and its usage is kind of minimal at the moment. What's the difference? And there's examples of the quality that will come out of a polishing wetland. That water quality, are we still going to have the same perception that it's, in the horticultural industry, that it's still wastewater, or is it once it goes through that polishing wetland, is it proven that it's of the standard that will not create a bad perception? Around the country, there is wetlands everywhere from wastewater treatment plants. Is the water from that utilised?
Generally, the wetland is part of the natural form of the land, and then the next step is into the awa or the moana. So it's not generally taken off at the end. I guess one of the challenges with that water in a wetland is the quality is not something you can totally control, because you have elements of natural environment in there where that doesn't exist with the treatment plant. So from a mechanical point of view of the water, it's not a form of treatment that accommodates the reliable use of water for a particular use. Is there an additional treatment? Well, you get more UV through it because it's exposed to the sunlight, and you get some absorption of existing nutrients in the water through plants. But at the same time, you also get plants and animals doing their lively things like dying, dropping leaves and things like that happen as well. So you can't actually control it. Does it improve the water quality? Does it improve perception? It does a bit, but unless you blend it with another source, you generally can't use it for advanced food production, and that I don't think there's the market out there that would accept that at present. But water recycling is used when you blend it with a large water body. and it's a smaller component. This water will still then be rerouted out through the existing outfall pipeline anyway.
Right. My next question was going to be, so if, you know, if there was going to be a wetland, then there would have to be rerouting to the outfall, and water quality would be way better than what it was directly from the wastewater treatment plant. But at the same time, is that still accepted as, from iwi's perspective, as beneficial? You know, we know it's going to be cleaner and better quality of water entering into it, but it's still going to be wastewater. So, I mean, even from an iwi perspective, how is that going to be, you know, reacted?
I think there's always been a desire to totally take away the outfall pipeline, but that discussion is been developing, and these assets are designed not for a normal day, they're designed for when your flow's at 8 times, and that happens frequently, which is why you have the scale of infrastructure we do, is to get that, and that those discussions are, Leo's been closer to it, but those discussions have been evolving with the group. It's been great to be in the intimate environment to discuss the practicalities here. With a wastewater treatment plant, you never get a dead end solid. You've always got to have a bypass, because you will get hit relatively frequently with large flows that need to be managed differently. So all your infrastructure is designed around that. And nor could we put that level of storm flow through a wetland. A wetland is likely to be regulated, and the rest of the flow will be, you know, so those are considerations that we're developing in association with Tāngata Whenua, etc. We've also got a regulatory element here too, where the local water's done well, and the Taumata Arawai regulations are clear on the benefits from a compliance point of view of having an offal pipeline over something that was discharging to the ground. It would be a far higher level of treatment required, and beyond affordability of our community.
And so by having a wetland, it would also decrease the capacity of water that's currently flowing out of the wastewater of our outpipe.
Well,
the ocean.
In storm event, no, it wouldn't, because in storm event, most treatment plants, you often have a diversion or a weir or something where water goes to a storm tank. Depends, but you have to, if you're flooding things, you have to bypass and you have to go out the tailpipe, if you like. There's not a way to design a treatment plant for all coming scale of water. We're talking massive volumes here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of defence, because our whole programs go hand in hand, DrainWise, removing inflow, reducing infiltration, but there will be, you know, like Gabriel type events where it's we're flooded and stuff's coming in. But in regards to the polishing and the wetland, that's the journey we're walking, I suppose, at the moment, to understand both at this level and at the Kiwa Tāngata Whenua reference group level, and with Apuni Moana Trust, what that looks like and what those things would bring to this table for consideration around, what does that treatment look like, and where does that sit in regards to understanding at this level and acceptability or not.
Please, I have 2 questions. Probably the first is it possible that somewhere in the development of these discussions there's a chart or a poster that actually shows what we're trying to achieve here? When I say that, I'm talking about reducing infiltration, the polishing that the mound that would do, the aspect that says that when we've got 8 times the water flow, it will not go through either of those spaces. so that it's understood these are the multiple approaches to the ways in which we manage water within this contiguous system. But then it gets understood properly in terms of the Wisconsin mound, what role that actually plays in the 100% of managing water. I'm really interested to see what that looks like, because understanding the discussion here in this room, fabulous visual would give some clarity to understanding the impact these multiple treatments give to managing our water outfall, which then allows for iwi to be able to be clear that while it's not 100% stopping outfall, there are multiple ways in which we're doing our very best to do that. I think it would go somewhere towards giving some clarity to the community about the multiple ways in which we're trying to solve this problem. My second part of my question, that's my first part, can you tell me about the Wisconsin mound and what led to that becoming the chosen space here in relation to, we've got the, repo. What's the right word for the repo? The Pākehā word for the repo?
Wetland.
Yes, the wetland, thank you, sorry. We've got the wetland and then we've got the Wisconsin mound. How did we arrive on the Wisconsin mound as being the treatment, and what does other case studies for why this is a great option in this case actually say in comparison to a wetland?
We've kind of come into this play through the process, I suppose, but the Kiwi group went through quite an intensive process around one of the key targets was with the dry weather, wet weather overflows was to remove mortuary waste from the standard wastewater stream. So at the moment it goes into the wastewater and gets treated. So the mortuary mound is directly related to that waste stream, which is in the bylaw, trade waste bylaw, as we get the mound constructed and in place. And then that went through a whole process of how could we do it in a sustainable way and treat that mortuary waste where it could enter the earth in a treated state. So it's been cleaned up, and so that whole program is based around we're proposing a site at the Tatahiru Cemetery. So it's with the interned, so in an appropriate place, and it is for New Zealand industry leading in regards to that treatment, like Taiwhiti does quite often. But lots of people are interested in what we are doing in that space. But yeah, it's just related to that volume, which I think is treating about 1,500 litres a day that would be designed. But so that's the mortuary mound is just about removing mortuary waste from the waste stream, and the wetland is about all of the wastewater that's been treated. So it's treated water at that point coming out of the treatment plant and out of industry flow, goes to a wetland, gets treated, polished, and then off to its next journey.
Thank you, that was really helpful. I enjoyed that narrative.
So the reason why it's called Wisconsin Mound is because it was the Indian community in Wisconsin. They developed it, and Ian Rulu and a team went over there and they saw how they had developed by removing mortuary waste out of the wastewater system, and so they brought that concept back here and developed it with their own lens over it and kind of a few different changes, wasn't there? And yeah, it's been really a really exciting journey actually to see how this has all developed over the years, and now to see it finally because it was going to be in one place, and then after Gabriel got the area that they had decided, it got flooded, so that was a no-go zone because you don't want natural water going there. So the new site is a bit better located, elevated, so less flooding issues. So yeah, it's been an incredible journey, hasn't it?
Just following up on Councillor Tibble's points there, I became curious during the discussion about how does Council propose to separate that mortuary waste from waste, and carry that waste to Hene Tātari for disposal? Is that piped through or filtered or
Part of the process that we'll work through from an operating perspective as to how it would work. It would be gathered at source, so at the funeral place, it would be captured there, and then we'd work through with both the Kiwi group and Karakia Funeral Reference Group and this sort of level as to what process we're putting in place for receiving it and then delivering it, and how that would be managed in an appropriate way. Yes.
I can see that becoming an issue. And similarly, with regard to wetland, so council would pipe water to the wetland to be polished and then back into our infrastructure out to sea. Or was there some thought that it might go from that wetland just back to the environment?
I think that's a part of the whole process that Upper is working through in regards to what are the options, and us being hopefully a part of that process to come forward with here are the options or other pathways. And I think when it comes to wastewater, what we're learning is well, treated water is it's mostly a multifaceted pathway, because the incoming is constant. So it's always, it's running at near 200 litres a second. It's always coming, so it's got to have somewhere to go. So it's as we work through these processes, what are the pathways that can go and those options? So
It did create a thought in my mind in tradition. Awapuni Moana connected to the ocean through Toputitia, and there is traditional songs that are sung about that connection. And I think that adds another cultural layer of value into the discussion on the ultimate route that polished water will take, and the restoration of some of those cultural connections to place for Iwi. Any further questions?
I'll move.
I just got one. I just wanted to, so the Kiwi group have endorsed the site for the Wisconsin Mound and all that stuff?
they have, and we're just working with the local hapu around that area to make sure that it's appropriate for them as well. So just a considered process here to make sure that we've worked through all the right processes, and so that when we do construct, it's everything can flow from there.
Because my only was that I guess any recommendations that come from the tangata whenua are just recommendations, so it's more or less endorsed by the councillors. The decisions that are finite made, so it's going to be put at Taruhu, it's going to be at that site.
Endorsed by us first.
Yeah.
This wastewater.
Kiwi groups sort of guides us with some of that endorsement, I guess, and don't get me wrong, but prior to our last meeting, there was a bit of communication in Te Awa about their thoughts on this, the makeup of this committee, and how they should be more sitting here rather than having other. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Oh,
That was partly my point on us being connected at least through minutes or information, so that we're not making contrary decisions, or we're able to have a discussion around any matters that might fall contrary to each group, and having a slightly more dovetail connection into things with everybody.
No more questions? The report's moved by Colin, seconded. Thank you, Nick. No further reports, no general business. I'll ask Nick to close out.
Karakia whakamutunga, nei hui. Pauhihiri paurara mā te ahoi roto māra mai roto. Tēnā te pau, ka te pau kai, ka ngā te pau e nei kōrero, ka mā te ariki, ka mā te tauira. Ka puta ki te pai au ki te ao